right. Well, our team meeting is over, and now we're gonna get serious.
We need our laptop.
No laptops. They won't help. They won't help. Laptops don't present value.
Okay.
So Ed came to me about a month or so ago, and not out of any one person specifically, but he said, you know what, I'm seeing more and more stuff out there. And I would really like to, have an opportunity to talk to our team and our agents about the importance of what we provide as realtors, because what you're going to hear out there, what you're going to see out there, and especially with some of the stuff that's coming down the pipeline, is going to be a lot of people trying to devalue what realtors do for our customers. And so one of the biggest things that we wanted to talk about in this presenting your value is that, we're coming from a market that was all about speed and getting to the listing first, or getting to work with those buyers first, or getting those buyers pre-qualified to get in the house first, so they can get their first offer presented. And that's what we call a speed-based business, or in my past business, what I call an order taker. I came from the hospitality industry, and you had two different definitions of a waiter or waitress or a server, and you were either an order taker, meaning you walk to the table and say, what can I get for you? Or you'd walk up to the table and you'd say, hey, these are our specials today. We have a black and mahi and it's appetizer and it's dessert. And oh, by the way, it's paired great with this glass of wine. And that's a salesperson. And so what we're doing right now in the real estate business is we're shifting from an order taker business or an order taker environment to a skills-based salesperson environment. And don't get me wrong, you're still not going to be able to convince somebody who doesn't want to buy a house to buy a house. That's just something that someone's going to come to their own terms with. You may convince them to go into contract, but probably they'll find some sort of reason in the middle of that contract to get out of it if they really don't want to buy the house. So you'll never convince somebody to buy a house when they're not ready. But what we're talking about being skills-based is how do you present your value to a buyer or to a seller? And so we're going to give you some really step-by-step kind of guide on how you can do that. First and foremost, just a quick raise of hands. How many people have gotten a buyer lead, whether it's online, referral, whatever, and you jump in the car and they tell you what house they want to see, and you drive right to that house and you walk into a vacant home, having never seen the home yourself, and having basically opening up the door and let the buyer in the house? How many people have done that? So that's fairly regular, yes? At that point, what do you think that consumer sees us at? Do they see us as somebody who's providing value and taking through the home buying process? Or can they just maybe be like a realtor Zillow or realtor Uber? And ultimately, if they just had a realtor that says, hey, I want an app to go from this property to this property to this property, and my door open, you become a door opener and really not providing value, right? So one of the biggest things Ed and I kind of talked about, and the way we want to take this class, we've never taught this before. This is the first time thing. We don't have a specific curriculum set up for this, but I think we have a pretty good dialogue on what we're going to go over today. But the biggest thing I want everybody to see in their mind today is a big red stop sign that says slow down. Put speed bumps on. Because the second that you stop and take a moment to really look at what you're about to do is the second you can start layer on the value of how you're going to talk to that customer, what type of local neighborhood market expert you're going to be. I talked to Margaret, who's our operating principal in Jacksonville, about this class specifically. And she goes, oh, use me as an example. And she did. So ultimately, the day before her and her husband were going on vacation 2 weeks ago, they get a phone call from somebody in their farm area. This is the area that they've been mailing to. And this person says, I want to sell my house. I need you to come out here tonight. I need to get this listing live today. And Margaret kind of said to herself, I really am not prepared. And literally it's go now or don't get it. So she went there, she was not prepared fully. She did a quick CMA where she threw some stuff together, kind of had a good value of what the home had in mind, presented to that seller, thought for sure it was a shoo-in, comes back from vacation and it's listed with a competing broker. What happened? Well, sure enough, what happened was somebody else had a few more minutes and some more time to prepare. They went in with a more heavy listing presentation and better information on how they're going to market and sell that property. It went live at a much higher price than what she would have recommended. It went under contract at exactly what her recommended list price was. But she didn't have a chance to get either side of that deal because she rushed to meet that customer, even though she knew she shouldn't be doing that. So if it can happen to our operating principal, and it can happen to most people in this room, It can happen to everybody. So the biggest lesson I would share with everybody in this room is just slow down. If someone's in such a rush to go see something, just understand, we're not in the market we were 6 months ago. It's not like there's gonna be 6 offers on the property before you can get your buyer in the door. And if there is, then hey, you better be prepared for it. And I hope you're taking a few minutes to share with that buyer what multiple offers mean as a buyer, right? So that's where we're gonna start, is just let's slow it down a little bit. Let's take it slow and just be prepared for the changing market that we're talking about. Okay.
When you started, and Justin and I were talking about this the other day, the slow down, buyers and slow. It just reminded me of a song, and you guys can fill in the blanks. Slow down, you move too fast, you gotta make the listing presentation fast. You gotta- And we can fill in the blanks.
That's gonna be stuck in our head now.
Yeah. Slow down, slow down. One of the things we're gonna talk about today is commissions. And the first caveat I would say is listings are negotiable. We're not suggesting that you fix commissions. That is against the law. You can get in trouble for it, but I want you to all to get a raise in your commission. I'm gonna kind of bounce around a little bit, but I'm gonna ask you some questions. What do the following things have in common? A Rolex, a Lexus, the Ritz-Carlton, a BMW, Chevy Regal, Tesla. What do they all have in common?
Brand name.
The brand luxury.
Yeah.
What do you expect when you get luxury?
The best.
And what do you expect to pay for luxury?
Top dollar.
You pay top dollar, don't you? What's the difference between a brand new agent, a small independent company, somebody who doesn't have any experience versus someone who offers value and can prove that value? Should they not get paid more? Say yes.
Yes, and hang it hard.
Yes, you should get paid.
And this isn't something Ed is saying, like Ed was selected for this for a reason. And so let me just share with you, if you have not been here for over a year, every March, April, we do our annual presentation of our awards. And some of the awards are highest sales volume, highest number of closed units, and highest GCI. What blew me away last year was our highest sales volume agent was number 10 on their GCI. Why would that be? If they sold the most, but made the 10th most, what's wrong there? Low commissions. So that agent, and Ed's gonna go over some of these things, that agent was the very first thing when things came up and there was objection, oh, I'll do it for that. So Ed's gonna come up with some really good stuff, but I wanna share with you that Ed wasn't in the top 5 in closed volume last year. But Ed was our #1 GCI agent last year. And that was because he's able to charge for his services because he's presented himself as a local neighborhood expert in the neighborhood that he farms. But also when he works with a buyer, he actually does a buyer consult and sits down with them, has them sign a buyer broker agreement that agrees to pay him 4% if he's going to represent that buyer in a transaction. So if the listing agent's offering a 2.5% commission, Ed walks that closing table right before closing, presents his buyer broker agreement to the title company, and they add the 1.5% commission to the buyer's closing costs. They've agreed to it, they know it, and he's worth it to them. So there are ways that you don't always have to bring yourself down to what the co-broke's offering. If you truly take the time to present the value of working with you as a buyer's agent, what you're gonna do to help that buyer get and realize the dream of home ownership and truly get to build wealth, that is worth so much money. And if he takes the time to explain that, then he's all of a sudden presenting that value to that buyer of why am I worth that? And I can tell you that not every buyer is going to sign it, but if they don't sign it with him and they go work with some other agent that just shows up at an empty house and lets them in, they're going to be thinking about what I said. And when that contract goes sideways, as it probably will, who do you think they're going to call to really come and help them?
Ghostbusters.
Oh. Hopefully Ed, but so truth to the matter.
Truth of the matter is, I always listed 7%. Always. 99% of the time. I'm a lazy salesperson. I'm really, really lazy. I prefer to get paid more and do less. I really do. I would rather take that call and say, no, I'm not gonna go show that house. I'm not gonna go do that listing presentation until it's on my schedule and I have sufficient information to properly do my presentation. Because 9 times out of 10, what happens is, as Margaret found out, you go to that presentation, you're not prepared, and you lose the listing. What else have you lost?
Time.
Time. What is the most important thing we have as
Time.
realtors? Time truly is money. So I banged my head against the wall for a lot of years. When the phone rang, off I went, and I just got tired of doing it. So I'm a strong believer in education, presenting my value statement, and getting paid what I'm worth. Has anybody seen any commercials lately for lawyers getting settlements? Tell me they haven't. I'm seeing them all the time. And what are some of the other lawyers doing now that Dan Newland is showing what he's getting for his customers, for his clients? What are the other lawyers doing now? They're doing the same thing, right? Now they're putting up, I got $900,000 for my client. I got this one, I got that one. So they know that it's working because he's presenting value. And this is what you have to do. So the first thing that you should focus on when you're new into the real estate business is the #1 objection: will you work for less? What do we always say? Will you do it for 5%? Will you do it for 6%? Will you do it for 4%? And what do most of us say when we're new in the business? And why do we say that? It's because we've never learned how to handle that most important objection. So we sell ourselves short and we work for less. I'm going to show you something. What's the difference between, bear with me on the, I've been doing this for so long, I was doing average sale prices of $140,000. What's the difference between 5% and 6%?
Value.
Depends on.
If you said 1%, no? What's the difference between 5% and 6%? I go, it's a trick question.
Less money.
Most of you are gonna say 1%. The difference between 5% and 6% is actually 16.7%.
How? You
Take
tell.
the percentage. Well, you put a $5,000 commission on $100,000. At 5% is $5,000. You put it at $6,000 at 6%. It's $6,000. If you figure out the difference between $5,000 and $6,000, it's 16.67%.
Yeah, I failed math.
I did too. What's the difference between 5% and 7%?
Is it 32?
40%. So by learning how to list at 5%, learning all the skills and the objections, and being able how to do it, you can give yourself a 40% raise, 40% raise without working any harder, going on less listing presentations, and having more time. Does anybody want more time? Isn't that what we all say?
Yeah.
It's either time or money. This will give you more time. It'll give you a lot more
I
money.
want more money.
A lot more.
So Ed, do you want to
I
take
got
me
the
through
time.
any of your objections if I ask you, should we run through one of those?
Ask me any objection you want, and hopefully I'll be able to handle
All right, Ed, so we just met on selling my house.
Yes.
And I'm interviewing to be my listing agent and my best friend got his license and he offered to do it for 5%. Are you willing to list for 5%?
Let me ask you, this, your friend who will said he'll do it at 5%, will he just take the listing or will they actually get your house sold?
I don't know, I just started, I think he might have sold the house.
Chances are, if somebody's gonna list it at 5% versus what my fee is, chances are the property won't sell. If they're gonna discount their listing commission, what's the first thing they're gonna discount when they get an offer on your property? The price. If they can't even negotiate their own commission, how are they possibly gonna negotiate the sale price in your home?
So he ran me through that and that got me right here, like, we need to have this class.
Wow.
Truly, I have been one of those agents where.
I was too.
I've never pushed or projected my commission before. I was one that said 5% of something is better than 10% of nothing. But I also found out very quickly that I only have two hands. When you hit your limits, you hit your limits. And I started working on my sales prices. But commission is huge. And I think what Ed shares and what he has to share further brings a lot of value.
Can we do it? Who's got a calculator? Okay, what's our average sale price roughly? Daytona Beach area. Let's just say it's 300. Can we agree on that?
Sure.
So the average agent, the average Keller Williams agent, the goal of Ignite is to do 16 transactions per year. So let's say you're just learning and you're only going to do 12. What's 12 times 300? $36,000 or 3.6 million. What's that at 5%? It's got a calculator.
180K?
Yep.
What is it at 6%?
260.
21,
260.
21, 260. What is it at 7%?
252.
Mr. Math, what is?
I ask you a question. Would you rather have $72,000 more? 72,000 more
Wow, at the end of the year.
than that?
Yeah.
Would you be willing to spend a few hours a week, a month, till you got these things down? And once you get them in your head, they're there forever. Would you be willing to do this to keep more of your money?
Yeah.
Seriously, how did you handle it in the extreme seller's market?
Yeah, that sounds like.
Go through all my files in seller's market, buyer's markets, neutral markets, you'll find 7%. You'll find 4% when we're.
So-
Most recently.
So to answer your question, Holly, the way that Ed does it specifically is that he has become the local neighborhood expert in the way states in the area that he farms. They know him.
Know that.
3 generations, you've got a couple, 3
Yes.
generations. So he's sold homes to grandparents, parents, and children. So sometimes it takes time to build up that specific relationship with those people.
What you're talking about is becoming a farming expert, a local expert. But what is also true, if you pull up my transactions, they're not all in fairway estates, not by a long shot. It's about
Connections.
Relationships.
45% of my business, I think, the rest is elsewhere. Those same other people, it's 7%. When somebody calls me and says, so-and-so from Fairway Estates told me about you, and I would like to list my house in Countryside. 7%. Want to list it in Quiet Place in the country, 7%. Want to list it in LPGA, 7%. It's the same.
So I'll add to that. And I'll say, you want to know why no one here in this room ever gets 7% on their listings?
Devin asked.
Where do you start your listing agreement at?
6.
Is there room to go up from there?
I mean, I'm happy when I can get stuff. You know,
So here's the thing, is if you start at what you want to take it at, you have no room to go up from there.
True.
No one says that 6% commission is, you can't say that.
Yeah.
It's illegal to say, it's antitrust to say 6% is the average commission in this area. That you cannot say that to a customer. We can say 6% is what Keller Williams has me charge. But you can also say 7% is what I charge because here's the things I have to offer.
Or you could say real estate commissions are negotiable.
Or real estate commissions are negotiable.
And what's more important to you is not the commission you pay, but how much you net. Isn't that correct? Are you more interested in how much you'll net on the sale of your home or what you're gonna pay to get there?
Yeah.
Net, aren't most people interested in their net?
100%.
So when I show them my presentation, and I show them that the average seller that I represent gets 6.7% more than the real estate board average, and they get it in 1/3 of the time. Do you think I can support my value? Do you think I can get 7%, 8, 9, 10? Yeah.
But once again, you have built that reputation, that rapport, that time, if you're okay with, riding it if they say no. But brand new, well, I could, but like brand new people, how do they justify that?
So the question is, as a brand new agent, how do I do this? That's basically your question?
Yeah.
So as a brand new agent, you basically say, you walk in, Regina. Regina says, I'm with Keller Williams, and you have your listing agreement done in advance. It says 7% in the listing commission. And when you present it to the seller and the seller says 7%, yes, and you move on. And they say, wait, other people are charging 65. Yes, absolutely. What's more important to you is what you net, not what you pay. Is that correct? Well, you're a brand new agent. How long have you been in the business?
For 3 years.
For 3 years. Well, I've been in the business 3 years, but one of the benefits is I work with Keller Williams Realty, the #1 real estate company in the United States, in fact, in North America, in fact, the world. I have the benefit of years of experience of all the agents that I work with. So not only do you get my service, you get the talent from all the other agents in my office. Wouldn't you want the most experience you can get representing you in the most important transaction in your life, the sale of your home?
Yes.
Right. New agent, that's just one way.
Can I add on to this open conversation?
Let me just say one more thing about that. Most of you, maybe most of you don't. Connor Dyack came to work with me as a team member. He was brand new in the business. He knew nothing. He followed my training program. And he actually started teaching in this office. Because agents would say when he do a sale, they say, how did you get 7%? You've only been in the business 3 months. He said, there's no other way. He did not know anything. Go ahead, Brian.
I've had the privilege of getting it a handful of times too at 7, but the answer the question you're asking for is, I present my value. The slide is called Going, Going, Gone. And I just tore it in from 5, 6, and 7. I'm not brave enough to present 8, but I present it in value tiers, something tangible they can see.
That's a
And then
great idea.
And you're
Yeah,
keeping it an open discussion because you're almost telling them like, hey, I'm willing to work for 5, but I really want 7,
And
but
which
I
one
will
you
settle at
prefer?
6. So
And that's a
I do.
strategy that,
Right.
that Justin was showing. He said, the agent will start at 8% and show their menu of services. Now, do you want an 8% listing? And we're gonna have drone shots, we're gonna do this, this, and this, or do you wanna reduce at 7%, or do you want?
The basic 6.
And the most common thing they do, the high percentage on the commissions really are just those above and beyond services. So for instance, like the 8% listing included being concierge from the airport to their home anytime they came and left town. Part of it was if you do 8% marketing, they're gonna do 500 postcard mailings. If you do 7%, they're gonna do 300. If you do 5%, they're gonna do 200. So the marketing all correlates to how much you're gonna get paid in commission. There's all sorts of different ways you can go, but they call it the seller's choice. So the seller's menu choice. And the thing is, if you start at 6, 5, and 4, you don't give yourself a chance.
Yeah.
Most of the time, people pick which one.
Middle.
Yeah, right, the middle. So if you start and you do 7, 6, 5, where you're probably gonna end up more times than not. Probably 6. So the goal is, before coming to this office, I had never actually had this mindset before. And it really makes sense. And to see Ed do what he does, just really makes the rubber meet the road and makes it real.
Because I'm lazy.
But you took it from industry to professional. I think that's the biggest key takeaway from the conversation so far is you're keeping that professional tone. You're not chasing them, you're making them chase you. You're presenting that worth and value, you're holding to your gun, and that really sells. And that's the biggest trick right there, is really stance.
And I'm glad you said that, Brian, because quite often someone says, will you do it for less? So no, my fee is 7%. You won't do it for less. Absolutely not. Then I go into a script. They say, when they finally say no, I said, that's fine. Wish you luck in the sale of your home. And I start walking up. That's wait.
Mhm.
Really?
Power of the walkway.
Says, wait. Are you sure you won't do it for? No, I won't. Stand your ground, walk out. And I've had people when I walked out, Oot out. So come back.
That power of that walkaway is good on listing presentations too. I got two.
Dating.
I got two. Really good. Because that sends a whole nother message to that household that, wow. That other guy was begging for that contract to get signed. This guy's like, deuces, we wanna work with him. Because he just presented a good core value and then he stuck behind it. And that's the hardest thing in our business is sticking behind that.
That goes back to what kind of person do you want represent you? Do you want the kind of person that's gonna cave on their commission and then cave on the price of your home for its opportunity? You want the person who will represent your home and get you the highest price the market will bring with the least amount of inconvenience, We're all on social media and we present our value propositions, we present our testimonials, we do that a lot of social
Show
media.
our assets.
What I'm going to suggest to you is when you're working with sellers, you create a brag book, a hardcover brag book. And then you put on it something like this. Look what our past clients have said about Ed Savard. And it just has testimonials after testimony after testimony.
What's the name on our website? I think that's.
So when you go on the two-step listing presentation, you say, here's a little information on me and the people that I've represented in the past. Feel free to reach out to them and call any one of them in there. And you leave that and you come back the next day and do your pricing presentation. And a lot of times it's just list them. You know, that's not making them go to social media to find out about you. Would you?
It's just happening.
So whether you have a lot of testimonials or not, put them in a hardbound book. And every time you go on a listing presentation, if you're just doing a walkthrough, and it's, oh, by the way, while I'm back at my office doing the market analysis, I come back, here's some people that I've worked with in the past, feel free to reach out to me and get some references. Okay, hit me with an objection on paying 7%. Wait, before we do that. Yes, we did this. You will number them. Okay, give me your objection for not paying 7%. John,
That's too much.
that's too much.
So and so will do it for less.
I had 200 people give interview percentages.
Somebody will do it for less. And what was, someone will do it for less. What else?
My friend,
My
My
friend,
friend?
family or whatever, yeah.
they're,
Good friend in the business?
yeah, they don't wanna hurt their feelings.
Open door.
Open door. What else? Go on.
To get
Too
the-
strong a seller's market. You know,
Too strong seller's market
There's the.
for sale by owner?
I'm getting calls.
Gee, I just wanna.
Calls every day from companies that wanna buy my house.
Getting calls from other people. companies
And
that want to buy
mailers,
us.
yes, I've had sellers
Open
coming out.
door, okay. What else? Interviewing other agents?
I need to get more I need to end up with more money.
At that certain amount. The basic after that X number of dollars.
What
What else?
I can't overprice myself in this market, you know, in this neighborhood. In order to net what I want.
So again, is your important part is you want to net the most money? Is that what you're saying?
Well, yes, but in order to net the most money after subtracting your commission, the price is gonna be too high. We're going to outprice ourselves from the neighborhood.
So what you're saying is, when you add your commission on, the price is gonna be too high.
Yes.
So price plus commission? What else?
What about the courage to walk, they know and walk out? We need that.
What else? Come on.
Just say no and walk out.
Not interested. Everybody?
Not interested.
Not interested?
Not ready,
Well, yeah, not ready.
not ready.
Not ready.
Are you not ready to list tracks?
Yeah.
Why'd you call me?
Yeah.
Why'd you call me?
Well, it's already at 4%, Ed, but it's definitely a little bit.
Commission rates too high for the value of the property.
That's
Is
kind of
that
what I'm
is that what you
saying.
just said?
Yeah.
I need to net X number of dollars, so your commission plus the market value of the house is gonna push it over. What else?
Why should you get the commission instead of me? Why should the dollars go to you instead of me?
So same commission? Would that be one, same commission?
So were you telling me that at 5% you would do this list of services and at 7% you would do this list of
That's
services?
one option, yes, you
Well,
can do
I don't
that.
need the 6 or 7% list of services. I can get away with the 5%.
So you still want me to do it for that?
Yeah, I was just saying that would be one of that, I wouldn't need those extra services, but I feel like I need those extra
Well,
services.
And I don't do that presentation, that's one that Justin saw as the menu of services, but I don't use that, but
I
that is,
gotcha.
I would not present that, give them the choice, I don't want to give them the choice between 7
Okay.
You know,
by selecting services. What else?
My cousin does it for 6%.
There we got somebody else to do it for less.
What are we missing?
Okay, and then in
What else?
Margaritaville, the market is absolutely set at 4%. By Keller Trans, who is.
Everybody in the area, everybody in the area.
Yeah, everybody in Margaritaville, it's 4% or FISBO, period.
Not for Ed.
Will give me a list.
Not for Ed.
That's the objection.
I'll tell you on your next one, come on, let's try it out, so.
You gotta get the boot this. So, do we have any more objections to this? Anybody else got anything?
What are yours?
Are we clear?
What can you do for me that
Are we
the other
good?
agents can't do for me?
Pardon me?
What will you do for me that Brian Griffin won't do?
What makes you special?
What makes me special?
Thank you.
I'm gonna throw my name out there, Kelly, I'm not with her.
Okay, we can do what makes it special, but let me just get the point here. You want to save the commission, that's one. Not ready, that's number 2. Pricing commission, I think that's kind of ties in too much. That's 3. Some will do it for less, that's 4. It's a strong seller's market, that's 5. iBuyers, investment buyers, that's number 6. I'm interviewing other agents, number 7. I need to net X number of dollars, that's number 8.
Everyone's subdivision will do it, correct?
Everybody in the subdivision will do it for 9, and
4%.
so we got 9 objections. Is that all you got?
What would they be? Yeah.
I'm serious, is that all you got?
I never heard of you.
Pardon it?
I never heard of you. I never heard of you.
Oh,
Another objection.
never heard of
Yeah.
it. Reputation, okay,
Your value.
Who are you?
Just show your value.
okay, so we got 10. Let me ask you a question. If you could learn the scripts to handle just the 10 objections, and you folks, I've asked you several times, give me your best, give me your best. If you knew how to answer all of these objections, you think you could do better?
Yeah.
Do you think you could learn in 1 hour how to handle 1 objection? Say yes.
Yeah,
So do you think in 10 hours, you could learn how to learn all 10 objections and how to handle them? Do you think there's any more than these?
Yeah.
There's not really. You guys are the experts in the business, and you couldn't come up with any more than 10. Do you think a seller is gonna come up with more than 10 objections? No. So if you learn how to handle all these 10 objections, do you think you'd be unstoppable? Say yes.
Yes.
Is it worth your time to learn 10 objections?
Yeah.
Yes. So when are you all gonna do it? No. And that, as Justin has said, that's one of the first things we all cave on. Is someone will do it for less. Someone will do it this. I have a friend in the business. Let me ask you, is your friend in the business? If you felt somebody else besides your friend in the business could get you more money. And if you're sale with fewer problems, would you still feel obligated to your friend? That's gone out the window. We throw people under the bus if somebody will also give you more money. Don't they?
And everybody knows, when you get these objections, it's never you always wanna take the high road, you never wanna put another agent down on what their services are, so like, all of these objections have nothing to do with what somebody else does. It's what you do, or what we do.
I do it one more. So they look at your services and they say, I'm a professional photographer. I don't need your service for that. I can do this. I have so-and-so, so all, okay, so with all, since I'll take care of all that piece of it, that marketing piece of it, can you just charge me 6%?
No.
Okay, and.
That's an answer. No.
Yeah, okay.
What makes me special?
Yeah.
Oh, some of these people find out.
Yeah.
Also, there's your neighbor just down the street. This one was a realtor. Call somebody.
I feel when you get some of those objections, though, those are from bargain shoppers.
I've got.
Do you even want to deal with something?
Correct, like,
Well, that's a good point, but.
So two good
you really
objections here.
have to.
I will out if someone were to say like, if I say I'll do the job for you for 7%, and if I don't have the home sold in 30 days.
Well, yeah, you can. opt
Again,
out.
like I'm the client asking you to do that. I'll give you the 7%, but you need to sell my home in 30 days. Or it's
Everything's in the market right now,
that.
Depends on your price point.
It depends, yeah.
Or 20, 30, anything.
but it's less than 30 days.
Yeah. well, I'm-
So if somebody says, yeah, I'll take your.
Well,
listing
over
at 7%.
4, we're back up to 30.
Yeah, I might take the listing at 7% with that kind of guarantee, depending on. If they price it right and they're sellers that I want to work with. And sellers that will do what I ask them to do to get the house ready for sale. One of my favorite words has always been depends. Will I do it for? Depends. Do I take listings at 6%? Very few, but I do. You know what's really fun, 7% listing, is when you double end it.
Oh, yeah.
Then you get a $300,000 sale, and you get a $21,000 commission.
Now, I'm assuming that with the 7, 4 is on the listing side and the
Yes.
3 is on the buying
Or
side.
3, never ever discount the other agent. And we see that all the time. They say, I'm gonna take 6%, but I'm only gonna give you 2%.
You're right.
The list, the house across the street is very similar, and it's offered at 3%. Which one are you gonna try to sell?
Well,
That's presenting value though, because I present commission and value like that when we discuss the co-broke. Because
Yes.
I take 0.25 off of the equation right off the bat to cover my marketing expenses.
So,
So if I took a 5% listing, it's 2.25 to the buy side and technically 2.75 to me. Because 2.5 was presented and to reimburse the covering to a cancellation fee.
so I would sell your listing, but I would have a buyer's brokerage saying, I'm getting 4%, and I'm gonna bill you at the end of it for the 1.375%.
If I was the buyer, right? Because it's the seller, you bill that back to me.
No, when you took a listing at 5% and you offered 2.75% to the selling agent, I'm gonna send a bill at closing for 1.25.
I've negotiated
To make
it
4%.
into closing costs and gotten paid what I'm worth. And so the seller, I've had it happen where the sellers paid for it.
That's a whole other class. I'm working with buyers who get 4%. Let's start with the listings. Where is the money made in this business? Listen, how many people do you hear after they've been in a business? I never want to work with another buyer again. I am sure driving me crazy. Oh,
Rewarding, more rewarding.
Yeah, I
They
find it
can
more
be,
rewarding
if you
too.
work with them right,
Right.
but most of us, we cut our teeth in this industry working with buyers. Why? Because they're easier to find. They pick up the phone and they call. Listings is a specialty, but listings has been and always will be where the money is. And where is your security is.
I have an objective.
Yeah.
Okay, so with, an investor, I just recently have this relationship where they're gonna be doing multiple properties, we may buying and selling. So leveraging that, to put me ahead, they wanted me to discount what I would list the house within, you know, multiple properties.
Again, I will go back to what motivates you, whether you don't want to work with these. I have worked with investors and I won't work with them now. Because they want to work you like a dog and they want to pay you scraps. I just won't work with an investor unless it's an investor that has reasonable criteria that's not going to want a 25% discount off fair market value. I'm not going to be that person. There's more good business than being I've been there, done it. You know, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with it. I've been there, I've done it. I'm just saying from experience, I would rather work with a qualified seller or a qualified buyer willing to pay me a fair price for my time and for my expertise versus somebody who just want, I want to write 50 offers this week. And they're all gonna be 25 to 50% less than ask price. And you're gonna spend 100 hours working with that person, and during that 100 hours that you worked with that person, you could have done half a dozen transactions and got paid what you were. Just saying.
You're saying work smarter, not harder.
That's basically it, Greg. Work harder and smarter.
I'm an SOB.
So am I. I wouldn't work with Greg. Because I know what Greg does. He's an investor. He's out buying properties at a discount prices. That's what you do, isn't it?
Well,
Kinda.
I've done a couple of.
Yeah.
those,
But in my interview process, I would say something like, Greg, let's say I find you a property that meets all your criteria and it's priced a little bit higher, and you're gonna have to pay fair market value, and you can't get it at a 25% discount. Would you buy that property?
No.
Yeah, see you, Greg.
What's it done?
Yeah.
It's done nothing for you or me?
Yeah, my buyers put their faith in me to find quality homes at reasonable prices that I can honestly recommend them, considering what you're basically asking me to do, Greg. I'm sorry, I can't represent you. I wish you luck in your home search. Bye. That's polite.
There's on NAR, on the National Association of Realtors website, they actually have an article that talks about the 184 things your rating does for you. This is on the listing side. So it literally lays out everything from pre-marketing to listing, to advertising, to qualifying the buyer, to following up on the loan. But there's 184 things your realtor does for you in a real estate transaction when we work on the listing side. I couldn't name 184 things, but I know.
And that's powerful. That is.
This is something good. This is on the National Association of Realtors. I have this on my computer though. I'll email it to everyone who's here. But what you're gonna find, and I'll dive into this in just a second. What you're gonna start hearing, starting in February of next year, is that there is a class action lawsuit right now going on with the Department of Justice versus the National Association of Realtors. And they've cited in Whitehurt, Remax, Keller Williams, named some of the largest brokerages in the world. And what they're saying is that they're saying that by taking a listing at 7% and offering 3% to a buyer's agent, that they feel like that's a violation of antitrust laws, because now you're having a seller compensate a buyer's agent to negotiate against what they're perceived as their best interests. And so starting in February.
Can you explain?
So when you are a seller, you pay a commission to the listing brokerage. That listing brokerage then pays a co-broke commission to a buyer's agent's brokerage. Antitrust law is saying that by forcing a seller to compensate an agent to negotiate against their best interest to get their price down on their home, that's an antitrust law. Why is the seller compensating a buyer's agent to get me to bring my price down or devalue my home? That's where the lawsuit is. That lawsuit has been restored to class action lawsuit and is going to trial in February. Starting February 1st, you are going to see the biggest national ad campaign ever. You think Camp Lejeune is bad? It's going to say something like this. Have you bought or sold real estate in the last 15 years and feel like you paid too much from commission? If so, call Johnson & Johnson, attorney at law, and they're going to get people to sign. They're going to get a lot of money. And they're going to look to get this money from NAR, from a lot of different places. Where I'm going with this is that it has the potential to break the MLS, because the MLS, there's one thing the MLS has, and that's the offer of compensation if you bring a buyer and close a deal. If this lawsuit goes through, there will no longer be an offer of compensation to buyer's agents. It'll be up to the buyer's agent to get a buyer broker agreement from their buyer and be compensated for their buyer to represent them wholeheartedly and fiduciary. Yeah, that word.
That was good.
That word. So real estate as we know it could be changing next year. And these are the things I'm seeing at the national level right now. And there's going to be a huge campaign. So NAR has this and about 20 other slides for you to share, talking about the value that a realtor brings to you. And the fact that putting a listing in MLS as a competing marketplace is in the best interest of a seller. Because here's the thing. I'm a seller. I asked Lexi, what's my home worth? And you tell me what my home is worth, right? Does it matter what I'm paying in commission of what I want for my home? Am I going to discount the value of my home because I don't have to pay 7% in commission? No, a seller wants to know what their home is worth and they want to get it. So ultimately, this lawsuit is going to harm buyers, because now buyers are still going to pay that high price, but now they have to pay their own commission on top of that high price. So it's not really helping the consumer, and that's where NAR and the realtors are taking the countersuit back. So we don't know where it's going to end up, but I can tell you one thing: the most important thing you can have is that without a buyer broker agreement being signed, you've not been hired as a realtor. You can open 100 doors, but there's nothing that says that buyer has hired you to represent them in a real estate transaction, and you have zero claim to any commission. So that buyer broker agreement really needs to be reintroduced to your business if you want to last in this business beyond this year.
Don't work without one. It's like jumping out of an airplane without leadership.
It's required in command anyway, right?
Yep.
No.
In my year and a half of being here, I've seen one buyer broker agreement executed. In my 10 years of being in real estate, I've seen 2.
So you're not talking about.
Kind of buyer broker.
Not the KW ones, you're talking about the.
The FAR buyers brokerage agreement.
The FAR, I see.
So if you have your own service agreement for both a buyer and, well, in this case, we're talking about buyer. If you make up your own service agreement, what you're gonna provide and what you ask of them and get them to sign it, does that still serve the same thing?
Well, Linda, I'm gonna say first and foremost, unless you're an attorney, you shouldn't be writing your own agreements. We shouldn't be practicing law and creating contracts. So I would have an attorney create a buyer broker agreement. There is one already created by Florida Realtors for any buyer's agency. Don't reinvent the rule. Don't reinvent the wheel. So use the Farb buyer broker agreement. It will do everything you need it to do. If you want to use the Florida Realtors Keller Williams buyer broker agreement, we do have a Keller Williams buyer broker agreement that's been approved and used by our attorneys. But anything changed in a written contract should be reviewed by an attorney, because otherwise we could be found.
And that Florida Association of Realtors buyer brokerage agreement has a place to insert what your fee is. 4%, 5%, 6%, whatever you want. One of the things.
You didn't say 7%.
It's blank.
Well, yeah,
It's filled with blank.
type it in, don't write it in. One of the things on the legality of it that I would say, and I'm sure the attorneys have thought about this. Has anybody here ever bought a car?
Yeah, sure.
Anybody ever bought any furniture?
Yeah.
Was there a salesperson involved?
Yeah.
Do you think that salesperson was paid a commission?
Yeah.
Who paid the commission?
Me.
I didn't.
That's what I thought.
You did.
Built into
Yeah,
it.
absolutely right. It was built into the price. So have a buyer's brokerage agreement. Have it in writing. Another thing, a benefit of 7% commission or 8 or 9 or 6, whatever. And I just had experienced this in a closing 721 B Street. We got to the inspection and I forget what it was, a hot water heater or something came up. And they wanted the buyer, and they were out of their inspection period. We could have just blown it off, but sellers wanted to get for it. They wanted $2,000 to compensate for whatever. We said, no. They said, well, we're gonna walk. And so we could have got it drawn into a legal battle because they were out of contract, out of time for their inspection at that time. So we said, so what you're saying is that we're $2,000 away from you agreeing to close it. It's not my buyer. I said, yes. So I went back to my seller who was paying me 4% on the side. I said, we're $2,000 away. If I throw in $1,000, would you throw in $1,000? What do you think they said?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So the tip here is never offer a percentage, because I could have said, if I do this at 3%, what's 3% on, that was $250,000, would have been $7,000. If I had knocked off 1%, that would have been so much. What was it, Greg?
700.
1% on $200,000 is 2,000, so it would have been $3,500. What sounds bigger? 1% or $1,000 every time. But what we do as realtors is say, I'll knock off 1%.
Right.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it. Give them $1,000 and keep 1,000 for yourself. Offer dollars, not percentages when concessions.
Most people can't do percentages anyway.
Yeah, when they think of 1%, but when you say $1,000, that sounds a lot more money than 1%. Because most people, like you say, won't figure it out.
idea.
And so we closed the deal.
So just some stats for you, just to kind of throw it out there, 91% of home buyers after the closing consider their real estate agent to be a useful source of information. And 85% of first-time home buyers say their real estate agent helped them understand the home buying process. So there really is a desire and need to have us in this industry and in profession. And it's just, I think it's one of our own limiting beliefs that we think that, we're not worth what we put out there. So one thing I wanted to share again in the whole theme of slowing down a little bit was the fact that all of you guys have command. How many people here have a buyer consult guide that they walk through with buyers on a regular basis? I'm glad I don't see a lot of hands, so I think I see a lot of them. Literally, when you go into command and we go into designs, if you do nothing else today, go to create design and you want something in print. And when you get into this screen under when as soon as it pops up and it has search on it, just type in buyer consultation. And what you're going to get is you're going to get a nice thick, I think it's 30 something pages, but it's a KW Your Guide to Home Ownership. It's already created for you. It's got pages and pages about the buyer consult, and it's an instruction page on how to create it, what to put in there. You just drag and click out and change your logo, you change your picture, you change your name, phone number. This becomes yours. It's one of the coolest things about working for Keller is someone's already created it. You just have to rebrand it to you.
Fill in the blanks.
But literally what's cool is at the very end of it, it truly has a spot where it talks about, commonly used terms, the bottom line, a promise to you. I mean, there's all sorts of things you can put in here that keep you relevant after the closing process. Maybe you want to put a page in saying closing is only the beginning of our relationship. And then it actually had in here things that are important to me, Red Day. So it talks about, I'm going to be contacting you in May to do one of our community outreach programs. Maybe I'm going to touch base with you your first week to make sure your first week in your home is everything you wanted it to be. But this guide becomes the way that you're presenting your value to that buyer. There's things in here talking about, the inspection process, the lending process, the appraisal process, contingencies. What does all this stuff mean? I think we rush through this way too fast. And I think a lot of home buyers don't understand what they're getting into when they first embark on this process with you. So if you're able to sit down and take the time to create it, it's there for you and you could use it. Now, what I was going to share with you is my wife said, you know what, this is too hard. I want it to be more like me. I want to edit it more. I want it to be very, very much about me and my brand. So she goes onto a site called Etsy, ETSY, and you can pay for it. So she paid $20 and she got a 40-page buyer consult guide that has this like on steroids. And so, and then she takes it and it goes into Canva and you create it the way you want it and then you print it and you have it. The whole idea is that you have to create this once and then it's yours to use forever. You don't ever have to recreate it every time you go on a buyer consult. It's here for you. That's your listing site? Huh? Is there a listing site for that?
Yes.
Yes.
There is your listing template, yes. So the same thing in here. Go ahead.
I did do that, but after many months of being already in it, nowhere in the beginning did anyone point that out, that you should have a listing agreement on listing presentation.
Yeah.
And buyer's list.
Most people show up with listing paperwork, maybe a CMA, and that's about it. If you have a listing presentation, this actually kind of takes a CMA and it turns it more into your branding. So it talks about, some of your comps, what you have to offer as an agent. Again, the process, what is staging, what process, what things do you have to offer? If there's something in this guide you don't offer, just delete it, take the page out and recreate it. But literally these are for you to use at any time you want. So take it, download it. So again, if I just go in here and I hit search and I search for, again, listing template or listing presentation. It's going to pop up. I could go for images, my design, assets, but you can kind of go into what you want. There's a luxury listing presentation. If you're working on a luxury property, it has, higher end words in it. If it looks a little bit different, I'll show you what that one looks like. Let me do this for a second. When we go back into my designs. I didn't want to turn this into a class, but here's, for instance, here's your homeownership guide. Here's just the regular listing presentation. Here. And it just, you can go page by page and swap out. This one's 29 pages long. And you could click on it and you could, again, edit everything in this. You could change out the picture if you want to change out the picture. So you could really edit this to be however you want it to be. Or the luxury one looks like this one. Um, the luxury literally just looks, it's 26 pages. And literally goes, just more, again, more into luxury type. But there's instructions on how to build it out. Just talks about the market, masters of luxury real estate, kind of just goes into some branding on as far as like a luxury property, what you'd expect over earning the latest accolades, talking about Wall Street Journal, Forbes, Fortune magazine, some of the higher end publications. So literally this stuff has been created for you to reuse. So it's right there in your designs and commands. So all of you have access to all of this information. Take a few hours and just make sure you present yourself in the most professional manner possible. And don't rush through this time.
Slow down.
Cool down. What else, Ed? What do you want to wrap this up on?
Give yourself a raise. Invest in your own education. You could only come up with 10 objections. You can learn how to do an objection and learn how to script it, play it, recite it, and it sounds just like you. Have you ever watched a TV show? Say yes.
Yeah.
Do you think those people learn lines?
Yes.
Yes. You're an actor on stage. Perform. What I will end with this. When I first got into business a long time ago, there was very little training. Keller Williams just gives you all the tools. But I specifically remember Jerry Bresser. He was a broker from Detroit, Michigan, and he offered a course called Intertech, which stood for Interchangeable Lifting Techniques. My brother and I, who lived in Canada at the time, drove to Hartford, Connecticut for 6 days. We drove there, spent 6 days in Hartford, and what he taught us was specifically scripts. We memorized scripts for 5 days, and at the 6th day, we all role played and played them out. But here's a script that I learned, I'm almost afraid to say how many years ago, but a lot of years ago, was when you did a listing presentation, you walked in and there's 8 good reasons why you benefit by having me represent you to sell your home. What you want is the most money you can get as quickly as you can get it with the fewest problems possible. Isn't that right? Well, here's how I can help you do it. And then I went through the 8 reasons. That was totally memorized. But the first time I said it was, there are 8 good reasons why you. And that's what it sounded like. And that's what it would sound like on TV if they don't learn their lines and they role play it and they make it part of their personality. Keller Williams gives you all the tools. The tools weren't there when I first got into this. I had to travel 1,000 miles to learn how to do things. Invest in yourself, invest in your education. Learn how to handle the most common objections. There's 10 of them. That's all.
And most of them are the same.
Yeah, but a lot of them are simple variations of the same thing.
So where do we go
John
to get this information?
It's all in Keller Williams. You go into Keller Williams, they'll give you all the objections.
Where is
All
it?
the-
Where is it in here?
Yeah.
That's a good question. The biggest thing, so again, objections are, I mean, it's great to have something written down on a piece of paper, but it's a matter of practicing with other people. So that's what Rick is here for. That's what our new agent masterminds here are here for. It's coming and showing up. John, what did you have? Did you have something on it?
Yeah, I have a question for that. Is there one for sale by owners?
Yes.
Packet that you can give them?
Yes, I
Is
believe there is. I believe there is. The thing with for sale by owners, it's the number of times you contact them. The average agent contacts the for sale by owners, I think it was 3 times, Justin. That's it. But you don't get it till the 7th time.
Wow.
But the people who quit after 3 are quitting just before they hit gold. They're walking away. But it's the agent who's knocked on the door, showed up, sent them something, and has 7 touches with that person, this person will get listed, but most agents quit it. I think it's 3 was the number.
In Ignite, in the course materials at the very end, there is a script and role play questions and all of that. Answer them and all of that.
Ignite has all the scripts that will deal with everything that we talked about. In Ignite, you can get every one of those scripts.
There's also some on the YouTube page,
Yeah, just
videos.
it's
And,
there.
and Rick literally has 2 books this thick long that has a script for everything. Like it is Keller Williams scripts for scripts, and it's got a table of contents. And it will give you rebuttals and all that.
It's a very, very heavy book. I brought it home and studied it.
But just pick one. You know,
But that's what practice with each other. I mean, that truly is the best way to practice with each other. And so, you know, one of the things that we try to teach people is that, you know, James Shaw does that pivot shift Facebook group every morning from 8 to 8:20. Right? 8 to 8:20? At 8:20, you could truly say, I want to practice my, you know, my value proposition scripts. They'll pair you up with somebody else, and all you're doing is practicing online with somebody else, so they won't pair you up.
They have classes too.
Yeah.
At different times where it's script and role play.
And classes being free, right? It's just a matter of
It's free.
saying, this is what I want to practice today, and they'll find you a partner.
It's all on Zoom.
If anybody wants an invite to Pivot Shift, let me know, and I'll send you a Facebook. It's a private Facebook group for.
Yeah.
Are you not on it?
Pivot shift call that comment. 7:30, it's.
Yeah, they open up Zoom at 7:30, and like people are just on there talking about stuff, but James Shaw gets started at 8 o'clock. He takes like a paragraph or a page out of the shift book and basically talks about it, and they elaborate on it every morning. So it's a great group to get into mindset. So
I was just gonna say that I think one of the first things that you said is sticking with me, because I think it also ties into the slow down, show them is, and one of your responses was, okay, so it matters what you net, not how much you pay. The point of that is what is important to them and all of it, what it means to them. So when practicing or thinking about your value proposition and saying, okay, well, I'm honest, or I'm a great communicator, or any of those things, but what does that mean for them? Why does that matter to them? You know, I have great communication because then I can help you to understand why this is a good decision for you or not be. Or I'm an honest person, I have integrity. Well, that's important because I'm gonna make sure to always, you know, provide all the information to you that you know, need to hear. So just whenever you're looking at value proposition, at the end of the day, they care about how it affects them, what it means to them, those values that you have. And so I feel like that was one of the most important things you can say is in that presentation is it's bringing it back to what they care about.
They have to like and trust you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's number one. That's honestly number one. So if they don't like and trust you, you probably better discount your commissions because it's not gonna be any way. But it is one of those things where ultimately, you know, tying things back to the big why. Really finding out why are they selling their house if you're working with a seller, why are they selling their house? Why is moving to wherever they're moving to important? So you can always tie back to that and ask those questions. So let's just say we list your house for this amount of money and you don't get it and you're not able to spend the holidays with your family up north. What does that mean for you? And so, you know, being able to find out what that big why is and being able to revert back to that is very important. So thank you for that, Linda.
Is Diana Kokoska still in the system anyway?
Diana Kokoska.
Diana Kokoska?
She was in the bowl. She was instrumental in starting the bowl.
But is she still?
I don't know.
Okay.
I asked that question the other day,
Okay.
and she and her husband Tony were
Yes.
instrumental in setting up Bold when it first came out. I don't know that she's still involved with Colorway. She's got a whole
Well,
bunch of-
scripts and dialogues, the only reason why I'm asking is
She's got a lot of scripts.
she was the scripts and dialogue queen back in the day.
Right on. Well, I know we hit our hour. I just wanted to, anything else, anybody want to wrap up or leave it behind or anything else?
If anybody wants to vote, I think that's.
I would, in addition to getting a brag book and starting it right away, start with all your presentations with a cancellation guarantee. I'm so confident in my services for you, I guarantee that writing. Most agents will tie you into a long-term listing agreement or buyer's agreement. Quite frankly, it's for their benefit, not for yours. When you want to cancel that buyer's representation agreement. In fact, Connie said somebody put 3% in it. Wow. They won't let you out of it, or they'll charge you a fee, or it's like a bad marriage, you're gonna be with them till the end of the term. I state right up front, you can cancel our listing agreement or a buyer's representation agreement at any time without any cost or penalty. I'm not confident that my services will work for you and you'll benefit from it. That's the first thing I show them. Most people, if they have one at all, will put it at the very back page because they won't stand by their work. They'll say, well, see, I better give them a cancellation guarantee because they're not gonna list with me or they're not gonna buy with me. Say it up front. Like you said, Carol, show your value. Show that, you know, they're interested.
And they feel safer to go with the higher.
You're listing or representing them as a buyer, totally risk free.
Right.
Most agents won't do that. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.